One country has more millionaires than residents. Another is smaller than a parking lot. Some countries fit inside an airport. Others survive by selling their internet address. From a nation where citizens are banned from their own casino, to an island that went from the richest country on earth to bankrupt in a single generation, these are the 10 countries smaller than your city. Number 10. Malta. Malta is smaller than Philadelphia. You could drive across the entire country in 45 minutes. But this tiny Mediterranean island punches absurdly above its weight. Malta's megalithic temples predate the Egyptian pyramids by over 1,000 years, making them among the oldest freestanding structures on Earth. Built around 3600 BC, these temples were ancient when Stonehenge was still a construction site. The country has 365 churches, literally one for every day of the year. During World War II, Malta endured more bombing per square kilometer than anywhere else in the conflict. The entire nation was awarded Britain's George Cross, the highest civilian honor, and that cross still appears on Malta's flag today. But here's the modern twist. Malta reinvented itself as the Silicon Valley of online gambling. The iGaming industry generates over 12% of GDP, and more than 300 gaming companies operate from this island smaller than Detroit. A nation built on 5,000-year-old temples now runs on digital poker chips. Number 9. Maldives. The Maldives is smaller than Orlando, Florida, but its 1,192 islands are scattered across 90,000 square kilometers of Indian Ocean, an area roughly the size of Portugal. 99.7% of the Maldives is water. This is the flattest country on Earth. The highest natural point is just 2.4 meters above sea level, shorter than a basketball hoop. At current projections, the Maldives could become the first country in modern history to be completely submerged. In 2009, the entire Maldivian cabinet held a meeting underwater. Ministers in scuba gear signed documents on a table on the ocean floor to dramatize the climate crisis. The government has already purchased land in Sri Lanka and India as a contingency plan, essentially buying an escape route for an entire nation. And here's the paradox. The Maldives is one of the world's most exclusive luxury destinations, where overwater villas cost $2,000 per night. Yet 35% of the population lives below the poverty line. The very tourists flying in on long-haul flights contribute to the carbon emissions threatening to erase this country from the map. Number 8. St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis is the smallest country in the Americas, both by area and population. Fewer people live here than on most college campuses. But this tiny Caribbean nation invented something that changed global citizenship forever. In 1984, St. Kitts launched the world's first citizenship by investment program. Pay $250,000 into a government fund, and you get a passport. No need to live there. No need to visit. Just pay, and you're a citizen. This model has been copied by dozens of nations, but St. Kitts was first. The program generates roughly 25 to 30% of government revenue. Wealthy individuals from around the world pay hundreds of thousands for a passport that gives visa-free access to 157 countries. This country effectively sells sovereignty as a product. And there's a constitutional quirk that makes this even stranger. Nevis has the legal right to secede from St. Kitts. A 1998 referendum got 61.7% voting yes for independence, but it needed 2/3 to pass. It remains the only country in the Western Hemisphere where one half can legally vote to leave the other. Number 7. Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands' total land area is about the size of Washington, D.C., but its 1,156 islands are spread across 1.9 million square kilometers of Pacific Ocean, an exclusive economic zone larger than Mexico. Between 1946 and 1958, the United States detonated 67 nuclear weapons here. Castle Bravo, the largest American nuclear test ever, exploded with 15 megatons of force, 1,000 times more powerful than Hiroshima. The crater on Bikini Atoll is still visible from space. And yes, that bikini. The swimsuit is named after the atoll. French designer Louis Reard chose the name in 1946, claiming the swimsuit's effect would be as explosive as the nuclear test. One of the most iconic fashion items in history is named after a nuclear weapons testing ground. Bikini Atoll residents were relocated temporarily in 1946. They still cannot return 80 years later due to radiation. The U.S. paid $150 million in compensation, but independent studies estimate damages exceed $3 billion. Today, the country faces a cruel irony. The nuclear testing that contaminated their homeland was done by the same industrialized nations whose carbon emissions now threaten to sink it beneath the waves. Number 6. Liechtenstein. You can drive across Liechtenstein in 25 minutes. The entire country is roughly the size of Boise, Idaho. But this alpine microstate has more registered companies than citizens. With 39,500 residents and over 40,000 registered businesses, Liechtenstein literally has more corporations than people. Its GDP per capita of $180,000 makes it arguably the wealthiest country on Earth. In 2007, Switzerland accidentally invaded Liechtenstein. 171 Swiss infantry soldiers wandered across the unmarked border during a training exercise. Liechtenstein's response? It's not like they invaded with attack helicopters. The country has no military. It abolished its army in 1868. And the reason they abolished it is the best military story ever told. The last time Liechtenstein went to war, in 1866, they sent 80 soldiers. They came back with 81. They made a friend along the way, an Italian liaison officer who returned with them. They decided war wasn't for them and disbanded. The ruling family, the House of Liechtenstein, has an estimated net worth of $7.5 billion. If their wealth were divided among all citizens, every person would receive roughly $190,000. Number 5. San Marino. San Marino is almost exactly the size of Manhattan. The entire country would fit inside the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. But this mountaintop republic has been independent for over 1,700 years. Founded on September 3, 301 AD, San Marino claims to be the oldest republic in the world. Its constitution, dating to 1600, is the oldest written constitution still in effect. This country was already 475 years old when Columbus sailed to America. San Marino has more cars than people. With 33,600 residents and over 48,000 registered vehicles, there are roughly 1.4 cars for every person. Parking is reportedly a national crisis. Completely surrounded by Italy, this microstate somehow survived the fall of Rome, medieval wars, Napoleon, both world wars, and Mussolini's fascism. When Napoleon's army passed through in 1797, he was so charmed by this tiny republic that he offered them more land and an outlet to the sea. They refused, reasoning that expansion would invite future conflict. That 1,700-year-old strategy of stay small, stay free still works. San Marino also has a national football team that is arguably the worst in the world. They've won exactly one competitive match in their entire history. But they once scored the fastest goal in World Cup qualifying, 8.3 seconds against England, then lost 7-1. Number 4. Tuvalu. Tuvalu is 1/5 the size of San Francisco. This tiny Pacific island nation has no military, no rivers, no arable land, and its highest point is just 4.6 meters above sea level. But Tuvalu found an ingenious way to survive. Its internet country code is .tv. The nation licenses this domain for approximately $5 million per year, roughly 8 to 10% of the government's entire annual revenue. Every time someone registers a .tv domain, used by streaming platforms and broadcasters worldwide, Tuvalu profits. In 2021, Tuvalu's foreign minister delivered a speech to the UN climate conference while standing knee-deep in seawater. The country has begun creating a digital replica of itself, a digital nation, so that even if the land disappears beneath rising oceans, the country can legally continue to exist. Tuvalu is pioneering the concept of a nation without territory. If sea levels rise as projected, this will be the first country to test whether international law allows a sovereign state to persist in virtual form. They're asking a question that has never been asked before in human history. If our land disappears, do we stop being a country? Number 3. Nauru. Nauru is roughly the same size as JFK Airport in New York. And what happened here is one of the most dramatic rise and fall stories in the history of nations. In the 1960s and 70s, Nauru was the wealthiest country on Earth per capita. The source? Bird droppings. Millennia of seabird guano had created massive phosphate deposits, and mining this resource gave Nauru the highest per capita income in the world. The government bought luxury properties in Hawaii, London, and Melbourne. They created a national airline. Money seemed infinite. Then the phosphate ran out. By the 2000s, Nauru was functionally bankrupt. 90% of the island was an uninhabitable strip-mined wasteland. The interior, called topside, is a moonscape of jagged coral pinnacles where nothing grows. The health consequences were just as devastating. The shift from traditional fishing and farming to imported processed food during the boom created a crisis that persists today. Nauru has the highest obesity rate in the world, over 60% of the population. Today, the country's primary income comes from hosting an Australian immigration detention center, essentially a refugee processing facility on a remote island. A nation that burned through millions in bird droppings now rents out its isolation. Number 2. Monaco. Monaco is smaller than Central Park. The entire country is 2.02 square kilometers. You could walk across it in 45 minutes. Yet, this is the most expensive real estate on the planet and the densest country in the world with over 18,000 people per square kilometer. Here's the headline. Roughly 1 in 3 residents is a millionaire. When you count all wealth holders with property and assets in Monaco, the number of millionaires connected to this principality exceeds the resident population. One country, more millionaires than residents. Monaco has zero income tax. The principality abolished it in 1869. To become a resident, you must prove you can deposit at least 500,000 euros in a Monaco bank. The cheapest apartments start at $5 million. A parking spot sells for $500,000. And the Monte Carlo Casino, Monaco's most famous landmark, is off limits to Monaco citizens. Locals are legally banned from gambling in their own country's casino. Prince Charles III figured it was better to extract wealth from foreign visitors than to bankrupt his own people. Monaco has expanded its territory by 20% since the 1860s by literally building new land into the Mediterranean Sea. The latest project, Merterra, added 6 hectares at a cost of 2 billion euros. When your country is smaller than a park, you build more country. Number 1. Vatican City. Vatican City is roughly the size of 80 football fields. The entire country could fit inside most shopping mall parking lots. It is the smallest sovereign state on Earth. But this 0.44 square kilometer nation is the headquarters of an institution with 1.4 billion members. The Pope is simultaneously a head of state, a spiritual leader, and the absolute monarch of the world's smallest country. The Vatican Apostolic Archive contains an estimated 85 kilometers of shelf space, over 150 times longer than the country is wide. Documents include a handwritten transcript of Galileo's trial from 1633, a letter from Michelangelo complaining about not being paid, and correspondence from Abraham Lincoln. Vatican City has the highest crime rate per capita of any country on Earth, approximately 1.5 crimes per resident per year. But that's because 18 million tourists visit annually, and crimes are counted against just 800 residents. The vast majority is pickpocketing. The Vatican has its own postal service, and it's faster than Italy's. Many Romans actually walk into Vatican City to mail their letters because the Italian postal system is notoriously unreliable. And here's what makes this country truly unique. It has no permanent native-born population. Every citizen is there because of their role in the Catholic Church, and citizenship is revoked when their service ends. This is the only country in the world that exists for a purely non-economic reason. While every other microstate survives through tax havens, tourism, or selling passports, the Vatican exists solely as the headquarters of a faith, a parking lot-sized country that influences 1.4 billion people. From a parking lot-sized country with 85 kilometers of secret archives, to a nation that went from the richest on Earth to bankrupt from bird droppings, these tiny nations prove that size has nothing to do with impact. Which one surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments and subscribe for more data-driven rankings every week.